This is a watershed moment. For 80 years, Europe has been protected under the shield of the Pax Americana. Trump seems to have broken that into shards. I don't know if it can be put together again. He seems to be keener to cozy up to Putin than he is to defend his NATO allies.
Keir Starmer and President Macron unite to send Trump a united message on Ukraine. The two leaders will coordinate their approach in an attempt to influence the president's plans. Senior diplomatic sources say they'll both try to persuade him not to cozy up too much to President Putin. Andrew, how realistic is that, though? There is a suggestion on the French side that they're going to try and say, Putin is not your sort of equal. Maybe don't treat him as such. Maybe Keir Starmer will go and talk about what the UK can do more on defence. We may even get a timeline for 2.5%. Do you think he's in the mood to listen, Donald Trump?
Well, he's not going to listen to that sort of stuff because it's marginal. And I think he's likely to bat it away. President Macron, he's going to point out to President Macron that the French have actually been dilatory in supplying Ukraine with the weapons it needs. Macron blows hot and cold, but actually they've not sent that much. They're way behind Germany, way behind Britain, and obviously way behind the United States. So that ain't going to fly too much. And if Mr. Starmer thinks that he can go to the White House and say, "Oh, we're not going to spend 2.3% of GDP on defense. We're going to spend 2.5, although I can't tell you when, but that's what we're going to do." He'd be lucky to survive 10 minutes in the Oval Office if that's all he's got to offer. It's a piddling extra $5 billion. That ain't going to impress Trump. I think he has to realize that Trump doesn't do decimal points. So it ain't going to impress at all. And the German election shows that this is now a really serious watershed that we're at. The new Chancellor of Germany, soon to be, has just said two things. One, that American interference in his free elections was as bad as Russian interference. And this new Chancellor is pro-American and Atlanticist. He said that. And he's now said that the main aim of his administration now will be to achieve independence from the United States. That's how bad it is. That's how little the Germans now think they can count on America when the chips are down. The Pax Americana is over, he seems to say. It's broken, so much so that he's even talking about coming to Britain to ask if Germany can come under Britain's nuclear umbrella.
Yeah. Let's come back to talk about Germany more specifically in a minute. But just on the Ukraine point, it's 3 years since the start of the war. We're talking about this in the terms of, what can leaders do to impress Trump? You use the word impress. That the suggestion is that he's not going to pay much attention to detail. Somebody's messaged in to say, should we really be taking this attitude with Donald Trump at all? He's essentially, everybody's dancing to his tune and he is lapping up the fawning, says Amanda. Would it have been better not to bother to go at all? What approach could we have taken if not the one we are?
I think Amanda's right. Not on better not to go at all. I think we should still go. But I think Amanda's right. All this fawning in front of him, cozying up to him, trying to play to his narcissism, it's demeaning. And it's no way to conduct a foreign policy. But Europe has to get its act together. The writing's been on the wall for a long, long time that we need to do more. It's now there in an enormous red neon sign. The graffiti's gone. It's a neon sign now. You can't ignore it. And the best thing to go is to say to Trump, look, is NATO over? Is America still part of NATO? Because if it's not, we have to make our dispositions accordingly. And that means a massive rearmament for Europe, not 2.3 to 2.5, but at least 3% of our GDP, and perhaps at some stage before the decade's out heading to 4. This is a watershed moment. For 80 years, Europe has been protected under the shield of the Pax Americana. Trump seems to have broken that into shards. I don't know if it can be put together again. He seems to be keener to cozy up to Putin than he is to defend his NATO allies. NATO allies that went with America to Afghanistan, to Iraq, and stood by America after 9/11. It seems he's prepared to throw all that away. And if that's the case, it's more than a wake-up call. It's an existential threat for Europe. And tinkering with what we currently do at the moment is not going to be enough.
Does Brexit cause a bit of a problem in this, I suppose, Andrew? Because what you're talking about, I think that must be right, the recentering of our political gravity, as it were. We need to find out where we actually are as a country. And it may be that we have to be closer to Europe because America doesn't care anymore. And in a world without Brexit, that might be more straightforwardly obvious how to do it. But Keir Starmer has got to balance not cozying up to the institution of the EU while still trying to focus on a collective response from Europe together, of which Britain will play a major part. That's itself quite a tricky diplomatic line to thread, isn't it?
It is tricky. I mean, look, Brexit has happened. For good or ill, it's happened. It ain't going to be put together again very quickly. Plus, the European Union has really no defence capabilities at all, or no defence dimension to it. I mean, I think rather than trying to bolster Europe in a Brexit world, it was always clear that although we were leaving the European Union, we were never leaving the defence of Europe. We weren't leaving Europe in that sense. And indeed, it became more important. What we're looking about, the big challenge that faces London, Paris, Berlin, Rome, the Scandinavian capitals, Warsaw, is can NATO continue to be effective without America? Because so far, it's been dominated by America. Can we move quickly enough to arm up, rebuild our military, provide guarantees to Eastern Europe and to what will be left of Ukraine after some peace deal Trump does? Can we do that quickly enough? That is not the EU without Britain. That is NATO without America. And that is a challenge at a time when the leadership in Europe is pretty weak. That is the biggest political challenge that is currently faced in all the major European capitals.
Finally, Andrew, on this point, President Zelensky was asked whether he would be prepared to step aside for a peace deal. He said yes in return for NATO membership. I mean, is that a reality? It seems unlikely now, doesn't it?
No, it won't be a reality, not for the foreseeable future. But it wasn't even if we didn't have Donald Trump in the White House. Nobody was rushing to get Ukraine into NATO. I think we're more realistic that Ukraine, a free, democratic Ukraine, could get closer to the European Union. And why, in the longer run, could it not become a member of the European Union? Why should Russia have a veto in that? The European Union is overwhelmingly an economic single market arrangement. And if that was good, if that's what the Ukrainian people wanted, they should be allowed to do that. I think what Zelensky is trying to show is trying to show the rest of the world, and maybe even the American people, perhaps even the Republican Party that part of the Republican Party that still believes in the defense of Europe, that, look, I don't need to be in the way. If me getting out of the way will help secure peace and freedom and sovereignty for Ukraine, I will do it. And I think he's trying, in a sense, to spike Trump's guns, because Trump, in his usual ways, tried to make it personal and nasty and all the rest of it. And Zelensky's saying, I'm not the one that's in the way here. And if you want me to go and return for certain things, then I will go. You know, there's a poster doing the rounds on social media. She's got the picture of the great Ronald Reagan. And and in it, Reagan says, I didn't defeat the Soviet Union so that you, fellow Republicans, could go and lick its boots. Yeah. And that is what's happening now, and it is a disgrace.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Andrew, how worried should number 10 be about a joint press conference with Donald Trump on Thursday?
11. Really worried.
Because he could say anything, couldn't he, I suppose? And also, Starmer could be as oleaginous as he likes, and Trump, he might not do this. He could be very oleaginous in return, or he could absolutely rub his nose in it.
Yes, and I think, Starmer has to see the wider picture. I mean, the problem is he's a very weak grasp of geopolitical developments, but he has to see the wider picture. If Trump is going to continue down the road that he seems to have begun, it is the end of NATO as we have known it. It is the end of Pax Americana. It is the end of Europe depending on America for its defense. It's the end, in many ways, of a united Western world. It's brilliant news for Beijing, for Moscow, for North Korea, for Iran, wonderful for Hamas, Hezbollah. It's wonderful news for all of them. And if that is the world we're moving into, and that's what Trump really means, then we need to make our dispositions accordingly.
Yeah.
And, you can cozy up to Trump and he falls for the flattery one day. The next day he learns that, the British government has forced Apple to create a back door so the British police can go in and get all the data out of the iCloud. And he'll throw a tantrum over that. And he should throw a tantrum over that. But what he says one day can be reversed the next day. It's not a way to conduct foreign policy.
Yeah, and that's exactly you can't trust what they'll do. And also, it is the argument you make of it being demeaning. I think is such a good one. It is demeaning. It just feels
we're still a great power. Britain's still a great country. We're a powerful country. In association with our European allies, we're even more powerful. With Canada, we're powerful. Let's stand for Canada. There is no way the British should ever allow Canada to become the 51st state of the United States. That is demeaning as well. And let's not forget that the head of state of Canada is our head of state too.
Yeah.
We should stand together. And let us not forget either that in 1940, when we stood alone without America, Canada was with us.
Yeah.
Canada was with us on D-Day as well. Canada is a great ally of this country. We share a head of state and a parliamentary democratic tradition.
Yeah.
Let's stand up for Canada is my message this morning.
That's Andrew Neil, who is not the ambassador to the United States of America. Get it right up, you Donald, would be Andrew Neil's.
I think for obvious reasons, I'm not the ambassador.
No, get it right up, you.